Hello, my name's Justin Leclue, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And this week, we're talking about filmmaker Patrick Wang.
That's right. Festival month continues on the Important Cinema Club podcast. This is the month where we're talking about either film festivals or filmmakers who thrive at festivals.
Thrive is probably a strong word because I think something that defined Patrick's career is even the difficulty of getting his films to play festivals.
So this is a bit of a counterintuitive entry for Festival Month. We previously talked about Hong Sang-soo. We talked about this year's Toronto International Film Festival. Next week, we'll be talking about some darlings of the festival community. But this is a filmmaker who is very well acclaimed, has strong supporters.
He has a 4-star review for his first film from Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert. Jonathan Rosenbaum is a great champion. Big deal people like this filmmaker.
20 years ago, if that happened, that would make their career.
Yeah.
And they would have studios knocking down their door.
And yet, this filmmaker, you know, he's not showing his stuff at the New York Film Festival, not at Cannes, not even at TIFF. I mean, he shows at some smaller festivals. So he's a counterintuitive suggestion.
Well, when you think of festival, maybe you think of like the big guys. This guy did play festivals, such acclaimed film festivals like the What the Film Festival.
That's right. So what's What the Film Festival?
Well, that's a film festival spearheaded by Peter Kaplowski, and that I help program as well because it's like Laser Blast Film Society focused. But Peter does most of the heavy lifting, and he did get to see Patrick Wang's last feature film to this day, which is A Bread Factory Part 1 and 2. And he just connected with it, and we played it, and Patrick came over too. And boy, I had a great conversation with him about movies and books and all of his passions.
Yeah, the What the Film Festival, I mean, my sense is that like that was a film festival made out of like the screeners of movies that were just a little too weird, a little too strange, a little too nonconformist to get programmed at a real film festival.
Well, Peter...
Sorry, I shouldn't say real film festival.
You shouldn't say real film festival.
Yeah,
but one that has
a major film festival.
Certain expectations of like what will bring audiences in.
That's right.
Because if you look
at commercial film festival.
Because Peter programs for TIFF and he programs for Fantastic Fest.
Right.
So if Patrick's films don't have those like weird kind of genre elements, and they don't, then it's a difficult sell, I guess.
And I'll tell you, I've seen great things at What the Film Festival. Damon Packard, for instance.
Oh, that's right. We showed Fatal Pulse.
Yeah, that was my first Packard.
And when we showed A Bread Factory, I was disappointed that there wasn't that many people that came out. Patrick was there, gave a great Q&A, and it seemed kind of, you know, the norm of kind of his festival experience is that he's someone that people don't really know, and that he makes very, not difficult films, but films that don't fit within a very specific box, I would say.
Well, you look at Patrick Wang's filmography and you realize that they don't have the hooks that get most of us to see a movie, whether it's like a star. I mean, you may say that like
James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Janine
Garofalo. Yeah. I mean, oftentimes a star, you may think you're not seeing a movie for the star, but the star on some subconscious level like lends a movie legitimacy. Also, his movies are very long. I mean, in particular, A Bread Factory is a 2-part, 4-hour film.
That's right.
2 hours each.
And you would think that would be like catnip to film festivals of like, yes, it seems big and important. But if you're not somebody that's well known, they're like, no, thank you.
His first 2 films, The Grief of Others and In the Family, are very formally rigorous movies about very serious things. I mean, in those movies, I can see why Rosenbaum likes him because he feels like, I'm not drawing a direct comparison, but a sort of fellow traveler to overseas figures like Abbas Kiarostami or a Pichipong Wirasathakul or, you know, people who give the audience a lot of space. I think there's like a great deal of like he'll often work in these long, unbroken static shots that don't necessarily direct your eye, don't direct your attention.
That's film festival right there, right? When you think of those kind of movies.
It should be. Yes. And like I think A Bread Factory literalizes this, but those first 2 movies are very interactive with the audience and don't necessarily draw a distinction between spectator and filmmaker.
And when we'll talk about A Bread Factory, even though J-Ro would go, whoa, that's simplifying it too much. It's a Jacques Rivette film. And that's what J-Ro loves that guy.
I mean, I see a bit of that.
No, absolutely. The theater, the kind of experimental, it's not a improv heavy film, but it has that kind of anything goes feeling to it.
So In the Family, his 2011 first film, and by the way, when I say that his movies don't have like the hooks, like another thing is this one has no stars and it's dealing with like heavy duty subject matter and it is
3 hours long.
3 hours long.
Yes.
So But once you get over that, like, this movie is incredibly powerful.
What I say to people to try to get them to watch them is like, hey man, you want a suspense film where you only need the edge of your seat? Well, check out In the Family. They're like, what's it about? It's about a same-sex couple and that one of them dies in a car accident. His biological son is then taken away by his family, leaving the other man who also raised the son from birth, has no rights for him, and he tries to fight and figure out a way how he can get his son back under his roof.
That's right, because the man's, like, the son called both of them dad, but his last will, the biological father's last will and testament was written 10 years ago.
Yes,
so
that, like, the mother died in childbirth, and that there wasn't anything, like, inappropriate that's not hanging over the movie or anything like that.
Well, yeah, like, the relationship was not ruined by, like, an affair or anything like that. He was with a woman, she died during childbirth, and then he became a long-term partner of a man. Mm-hmm. And then he dies, and then what happens to this kid who, like, has had
no biological link to this other man? They weren't married.
And no legal link either.
That's what I mean, yeah.
There's only, at most, a moral link. Mm-hmm. And so there's a scene halfway through this movie where the surviving husband, played, by the way, by Patrick Wang himself, goes to see a lawyer. Did you read that
Roger Ebert review where Roger Ebert is like, Patrick Wang, based on this movie, is a good man. He did the thing that, like, Truffaut did about Edgar G. Ulmer.
You know, that's funny because I buy that. I feel that. You
want to hear something wild about this movie? Patrick Wang does not have an accent that he has in this film, where he's playing, I believe he's from Tennessee.
He adds a little bit of a southern twang to his voice.
Yeah.
And I must say, his performance in this movie, I do find it, like, a little stylized. I don't find it, like, completely naturalistic.
Well, because he's not giving any, like, big emotions. And sometimes he's kind of, like, staring, like, at the other person talking when something, like, very heavy is being discussed.
And, like, I'm kind of conscious of the fact that it's a fake accent, and yet it's very consistent.
Roger Ebert was like, oh, I assume it's his real speaking voice and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just his diction, like the rhythm at which he talks, but particularly, like, in the last act of the movie when he talks a lot, like, there seems something stylized about that performance to me, but there's an internal, like, coherence to the performance.
Well, so the movie, when you hear that description of it, you assume it'll be like, oh, court cases, right? Going in and out, figuring out ways to, how can he get his son back? No, that's not what the movie is.
Well, all of the Patrick Wang movies are very elliptical. There are moments of, intense drama, but oftentimes the camera is, like, just a little bit away from where the drama is. So take, for instance, In the Family, maybe the most dramatic scene of the movie, when Patrick Wang, his character, realizes that the son has been taken away from him. You don't see him banging on the door. You hear him in the distance banging on the door, but what you actually see is the inside of the apartment as the other family are there, as the woman is there, sort of knowing what she's done. Mm-hmm. That's the most dramatic moment in the movie, but it's indicative of the way that he kind of, like, doesn't look at certain of the dramas directly. Like, you don't look straight at the sun.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea that if you... he's not trying to make it opaque to make it confusing, but by knowing it's in the margins, it becomes more powerful that way.
I must also say the structure of the movie, for the first, I hate to spoil the impact of the movie, but for the first, like, 20 or 30 minutes, you're just with this family.
You're like, I don't know what this movie's about.
Yeah, the guy's alive, and it's just the family hanging out together, and there's nothing dramatic that happens, but, like, you live with them and you get to love them, and
you need to understand they are a family unit, that this kid, great performance as well, that, like, it makes sense for him to be with these people, that it's not like, oh, I want it because I'm trying to hold on to my husband who left, that no, it's organic because this is how the kid grew up. Like,
and the fact that nothing, like, particularly dramatic,
he doesn't do anything
happens.
Badly, or like, oh, I can't believe you let the kid do this, that's why we're taking the kid away. It's just the family basically takes the kid because they're sad that their son passed away.
Right. And also, the last will and testament was not updated. No. So, like, what do you do?
And they're like, well, you don't want to go against his will, right? They're like, it's a blank sheet that he wrote 5 years ago.
When the Patrick Wang character goes to see the lawyer, and the lawyer says, I'm going to stop you right there. I can't represent you because legally you have no case. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to steal your money. You have no case.
So what the film builds to is the idea of, okay, if he has no case, what can he do? Mm-hmm. And all he can do is appeal to the people who took the kid away, which is the sister of his husband that passed away, which leads to, what did you think of that last, like, basically a 40-minute stretch?
First of all, extraordinary the patience that it has and the dedication.
Because it's just a deposition that's happening.
Yeah, and some of the deposition, like, some of the questions the lawyer asks, I mean, maybe they would have been more common in 2011. Certain of the questions he asks.
You don't think they get asked anymore in Texas?
Well, in Texas, yeah. No, you've got a point there.
Now we're, galaxy brain, and we don't ask these questions since, marriage has
Marriage
been
equality
legalized.
is unquestioned. That's right. But yeah, I mean, the patience of the filmmaking and the performances, and then like the final shot of the movie is just like really devastating.
And the decision that Patrick Wang, as the guy answering the question, he doesn't like break or have any moment where he's like, oh, like a big emotional moment.
Right.
And that's,
which would be so easy.
It was so easy in the context of the scene. And that's kind of why I feel like the film works as well as it does, because it is asking you to kind of come forward and watch it, which is why it's a perfect film to watch in a theater at perhaps at a festival, for example.
I think his 2015 film, The Grief of Others, his second film, is probably his most challenging movie.
Absolutely.
Not just in terms of the subject matter, which like there's less, I mean,
stuff to hold on to.
Yeah, and also like counterintuitively, the first movie has more joy in it.
Yes.
Like you could feel like the love in the movie's veins. You could feel like the goodness of the characters.
Well, like The Grief of Others is almost his reaction to In the Family not making that much of an impact, I guess, to distributors or finding a wider audience, that he went, all right, is what you want like a 90-minute elliptical movie shot on 16 millimeter. I was actually incorrect when I said last week that In the Family was shot on 35 or 16. It was actually shot on a red, but since then, The Grief of Others shot on 16, and like you do not know what's going on for 30 minutes in The Grief of Others.
Yeah, I actually watched the first 30 minutes twice because
Really?
because I like was having trouble like finding my way into the movie and getting my bearings. But then, on the second viewing, I figured out, oh, it's supposed to be like this.
Yes.
I thought I just missed something.
Nope, it is supposed to be like that, and I don't think by the time it ends, you're like, oh.
Well, there's no snapping into
reveal,
place
yeah.
moment. But again, it's like there are certain tragedies in this movie that the movie doesn't.
Everyone is like struggling with a tragedy, and the whole point of the movie is that they don't want to talk about these tragedies.
Right. And so why should the movie want to talk about it either?
I mean, the main plot, and I'll say it sounds more dramatic than it is that like there's a family, something has happened, we don't know what it is at first, and then the husband's daughter from another marriage who's like a teenager shows up,
right,
and she's pregnant,
and something's happened in this family and the vibes are off. There's the younger son is like overweight and he's being relentlessly picked on at school. The daughter also a little bit disconnected.
Yeah, she's like a truant, and she's like doing odd things that like they don't know why, like starting a fire in the house and things like that.
And the parents, they're not clicking either. Something has happened between them and we don't know what it is. But there is a kind of fragile equilibrium. Even with this amount of disconnection, there's a sort of truce that's been maintained.
How did you feel about like the quiet catharsis that he kind of reaches at the end of the movie, where like he almost makes a note of one of the characters going, wait, are we doing this today? And the dad's like, yeah, we're doing it. And then it's just like a static shot for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
As it plays out over that.
I mean, I thought it was like, it's certainly a rupture in the style of what's come before, but I thought it was very powerful. And also like, the filmmaking is even more restrained in this one for the most part, I think, than it is in the first one.
He does have some interesting like stylistic quirks that Patrick, when I talked to him, and as he said in interviews, like he was never a cinephile. It's something that he came later to life. He was more into theater. So there is kind of like interesting, there's like some addresses to camera that are very brief in The Grief of Others.
I'm not surprised that he was a theater guy before he was a filmmaker, because I mean, in both these first two movies, so many of those scenes that play out in these long shots, and like a Patrick Wang long shot is not the same as like a Kevin Smith long shot,
Yes.
like it's,
well, it's very carefully composed.
Yeah, the blocking is very like odd and interesting, and it's all creating this effect, a certain distanciation effect. But nevertheless, like his gaze does feel like a theater director's gaze, where like when you're in the audience at a play, nobody's telling you where to look specifically. Nobody's directing your eye in that way. Whereas that's what film directors typically do.
Yeah, so after The Grief of Others, I'm not sure how that one did. Like, I think it came out,
not notably.
No, I mean...
In fact, he self-distributed it
his first two films he did, In the Family and The Grief of Others. He gave me a gigantic stack of Blu-rays when he's like, I just don't want to take these back. Here you go.
Wow, Matt Farley.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. The art house Matt Farley.
Yeah.
He even starred in his own film.
Yeah.
And then he had a bread factory in 2018. Now, this is like... I guess this is my final film because I'm going to go out with a bang.
Well, I certainly hope he makes more after this, although I can understand being discouraged.
I've heard from someone actually messaged me after we said we were going to do an episode on him, and he's like, oh, I know someone who knows someone that he's working on something. It did kind of get shut down due to the SAG actress strike, but if he can get it started right after, I mean, he has something he wants to go with.
I mean, you can either talk for like an hour about the plot of this one or 2 minutes. So maybe we'll do the 2-minute version. But yeah, it's an epic 2-part movie that is basically centered around the locus of this experimental theater company called the Bread Factory in New York.
A small town in New York.
Yeah, in upstate New York. And it's more than just a theater company, it's a community center. There's a lot of education that happens there, art, poetry readings, movie screenings happen there. Yeah, kids come and learn about the theater. It's run by this elderly lesbian couple played by Tyne Daly and an actress who I was unfamiliar with named Elizabeth Henry. Both of them excellent, by the way.
What? Cagney and Lacey's Tyne Daly.
That's right. Touched by an Angel herself. Is that what she was on? No.
I don't know. Before my time.
She was not on Touched by an Angel. My apologies.
But
everyone.
she is a very well acclaimed, I believe, probably a theater actor.
I mean, she's fantastic.
I mean, yeah, this is an interesting film in that, like, you got those grizzled vets. You have someone like Janine Garofalo showing up, and then you have a lot of people that Patrick Wang, said in interviews, we just cast them in the town, like they were just available and they did acting but they would give that kind of flavor of what we're trying to do of like a community center.
And I mean, you talk about the Rivette comparison. I mean, it's a movie where like the canvas of it seems like spread throughout across the town. It feels like a movie where like it's continuing, outside the frame of the movie. There are all these characters, some young, some old. Well, as Rosenbaum pointed out, mostly very young or very old.
Yeah, there's no really like middle people in this movie.
So like, there's an old theater critic who's like has a feud with this old actor because he gave him a bad review like 50 years ago.
Yes. You also have like a newspaper, like a little local one. Did you have any flashbacks in this to being a newspaper person?
Yeah, a little bit,
Because there's a lot of discussion of like what it means to be a newspaper person, newspaper, as if I don't know what the word reporter is, and like how you go and get stories and what it means as well to take on the responsibility of running something like that.
But the central drama of both parts is that the Bread Factory is under threat because there's this flashy new art center that's being built that has a lot of capital behind it, and their centerpiece attraction is this bizarre conceptual art duo called May Ray, which are I mean, how would you describe them?
They're just when you think of like,
they're like gentrified Yoko Ono.
Yeah, what is the most cliche version of what experimental art, performance art? That's what they're doing.
I would say the biggest challenge for me in this movie is the sort of clash between like naturalism and extreme comedy.
Yes, like there's like Zucker Brothers gags in this.
Yeah, actually, and I mean there are moments, particularly in the second part, of like musical numbers breaking out, like tap dance routines and stuff like that, as well as like the style of the film changes frequently, where certain of the theatrical performances like kind of blend into the reality.
Well, I would say that I get the feeling that he did it that way because he really wanted to show kind of like what a community center is. Like, what does it, envelop? And you get that as well with, you keep getting people coming to the center. For example, Janine Garofalo plays a filmmaker who shows her film, and then them doing a Q&A and like, what do they bring to the community of the understanding of this art? Like, there's also a play that they're practicing that serves as kind of like a backbone through part 1 and part 2. Yeah. So in part 1, what you get is there is a thrust where they need to get enough votes. It's just a classic Lincoln situation.
The funding is either going to go to May Ray or them. And there's so much power, there's so much energy behind, many powerful interests and money behind this new conceptual art.
Yes. I mean, probably scuzzy money, as we learn throughout the movie. Yeah.
But some of the Zucker Brothers gags, like at one of the town council debates where the funding is going to be decided, they bring out some like glamorous Hollywood actor, a young like heartthrob type who comes in. He comes in like being chased by like a guy trying to sell him his screenplay.
Yeah.
The characterization is so broad. And then he starts delivering a testimony and then he says, line, please.
That year I lost my mom, my dog to dog cancer.
Yeah. And like, I think the movie is both like rigorous and loose, you know, like it's, there's so much about it that's very deliberate, but then there's so much about it that's just like letting any kind of style, letting all sorts of characters, all sorts of sensibilities.
Well, wouldn't that be a community center that
absolutely
that you're going in and out of? And like the second part is interesting because after there's a goal in the first one. This is what we're going to. The second one is like, all right, how do you live with that afterwards? How does this continue? And I mean, does it continue? Because there's something that happened tonight. We're like, oh wait, that's it. Like, do things go away? Do these people continue to live? Like, people die that are like there for most of the movie off screen, and the character's like, oh wait, you didn't know? Like this, because that what happens in real life. You are not present for those moments, and I found that very moving, especially like how the second one wraps up, which is the first one you get like all of these different elements of the arts you see in this community center. I should also point out Patrick Wang was inspired by going to a community center like this that was run by two women when he was touring one of his films. And then you get like a sense of all of these different crafts. And then in the second one, they want you to say, all right, you've seen these things. You see how it can help people. Now just live in it. This is what they do. And you actually see for like 50 minutes a play that they're putting on with all the actors. You've seen them rehearsing it, and it asks you to just like sit in this audience, watch this play.
Can't be overstated that both parts are designed to be watched back to back.
Yes, 100%. And I love that when that play ends and it's like beautifully mounted, Patrick Wang like hunted down a translation for it. He really did stuff. I mean, he talks about in some of the extras on the Blu-ray that he did want to do kind of theatrical show where it feels like you're in it. So like it's mostly black in the background, and there's also lighting that you couldn't really do in theater to get like from scene to scene. But when it ends, you look and there's like no one in the audience. There's like 5 people maybe. And the character even goes, boy, I wish more people would have come to this. Like considering how much work that we put into it. But that's just like the nature of doing these kinds of things.
I can't imagine Patrick Wang identifies.
No, not at all. So what do you feel like did you get out of watching these two movies though?
I mean, aside from, just a very stimulating and entertaining experience, I mean, the 4 hours just fly by.
Yeah. I think that's important for people too, that when you hear like, 3 hours, like in The Family, I remember when I heard about it, I was like, oh man, 3 hours long. Guess what? Every blockbuster you see in movies are 3 hours long and they suck. So.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, if you can spend 3 hours on, I don't know, the Flash or something, you can spend an extra hour on this one and have a good time.
Yes.
But just what did I get from it? I mean, just the kind of like freedom of it.
Yeah, of someone who is not constrained by any rules, or he doesn't feel like he's trying to please any particular audience.
And like as a depiction of art making in the world,
DIY art making specifically.
Yeah, DIY art making, like kind of understanding that like a space like this is a struggle. Like there are forces, political forces in this movie against this space, and like, but also like the reach that this space has, the impact that the space has on people and that people have on it, like
classes to learn to build furniture and thing like that.
The space is a conversation with the outside world, and every movie is a conversation with the outside world as well.
And just like the space, like these movies are struggling to exist.
That's
like
right.
They find little audiences that they make an impact, that they matter to. But in the grand scheme of things, Patrick Wang could just go, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm not even probably getting the money back that it costs to make these movies.
Yeah.
And like I've done 3 of them. What else can I do to get an audience? And that's the frustrating thing. But I mean, from all I hear, he wants to keep making movies, which is great, because I want to see like what else does he have in him, because these 3 movies are pretty distinct from themselves in tone and subject matter and even execution. So like what would his next one be?
Yeah. I mean, if his career ended right now with this one, it would feel like
the big
complete
culmination.
statement.
Yes,
but I would love to see what happens after this.
Absolutely, and I hope that people listening to this is one of those episodes that's like, go watch these movies. Like you can rent them on streaming services. You'll have to pay money for them. Probably.
I saw them on Apple TV, as well as Grasshopper Films puts out Blu-rays of them. He got a distributor, so
yeah. So I know A Bread Factory is very available from Grasshopper Films on Blu-ray. So make the effort, check it out, and hopefully you'll find a new favorite filmmaker.
So Justin, do we have any letters this week?
We do have letters. As per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. The first letter is subject line Mystery Movie Memories. Dear Justin and Will, I recently discovered your podcast when a former film student of mine, Matt Haller, recommended it, and have gradually worked my way through your back catalog over the past several months. Why so long? Hey, just because I'm listening to you guys doesn't mean I'm going to stop listening to Blank Check, The Flophouse, and Video Archive.
Okay, how dare you?
No, that's a good list to be in.
How dare you? We demand a monogamous relationship with our listeners.
Yeah, I don't listen to any of those podcasts before. Imagine my surprise when I got to the Pam Grier episode and heard Matt's first letter to you read aloud. It's been a constant source of amusement impatient for me to continue going through episodes and have more of Matt's letters. At this point, I can't help but feel...
Wait, has he been writing all those letters all along?
No, not all of them. Probably just the majority of them. At this point, I can't help but feel that when it comes to film knowledge, I'm like Darth Vader to Obi-Wan Kenobi. The learner has surpassed the master. I guess in this metaphor.
Wait, who's Darth Vader? Who's Obi-Wan?
I think he's
is Matt Haller.
No, Matt Haller would be Darth Vader in the situation, and this letter writer would be Obi-Wan because he was the film teacher to Matt.
Oh, okay, I
Which
see.
makes us, as this letter says, Palpatine or Dooku, all your favorite characters, right, Will?
Yeah, Jar Jar.
Yeah, love Jar Jar.
Remember Jar Jar?
Dark Jedi. I don't know. I guess the metaphor fell apart there, but the point is that you guys have clearly been a big part of that growth, and I continue to be amazed at your breadth and depth of encyclopedic knowledge. Finally, academia is, or I assume a film teacher, he announced in this letter.
So who's going to teach a course in us?
One of those like university courses, you're like, easy pass.
I'd like there to be a book called The Important Cinema Club Reader where various scholars write
it's
essays.
like so like academic. It's like I can't even read this.
About like the Important Cinema Club and spectatorship, something like that.
The letter continues. In any case, every once in a while, you discuss an experience of when people see snippets of films in childhood and then are haunted by not knowing what movie it is, assuming that their memories are accurate. Well, I have one for you and your audience. I remember being over at a friend's house when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and there was this old movie on TV in the background. It was in color, and judging by the shaggy hairstyles, must have been made in the 70s or early 80s, and I think it was a werewolf movie. Since we were playing, I only caught snippets, but one scene is burned in my memory. A man and his wife or girlfriend get out of their car, I think the woods, and encounter some kind of sacred ceremony. I don't remember if it was Native American or Christian ceremony, but had some kind of new agey vibe to it. Anyhow, when he tries to approach the ceremony, the man finds he is unable to in an almost exterminating angel way, or like there's a force field preventing him from entering the sacred space. The implication being that he has been bitten by a werewolf, and he is now tainted damned. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Anyhow, I love the show. Keep doing great work. CJ Fusco. I do not recognize that movie.
Could it be The Howling? I'm going with the most obvious.
American Werewolf in London?
Yeah. Probably not. But hey, if anyone knows, write in. Let's solve this mystery.
Let's solve this mystery. I have to say, I've been programming the 24-hour horror movie Mind Melter that I do on Twitch every year, October 21st this year, starting at 11 a.m. And I go through like lists of movies, of just horror films, to be like, is there anything that like catches my interest? And I gotta say, have I seen every horror film at this point? Because I'm like going through and I'm like, yeah, seen it, know about it. Nah, don't like it.
Well, maybe...
There's so few like discoveries for me. Am I just like beaten down? Only when it comes to horror films, I feel.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, yeah, I know all of these. Like, I long for that discovery of, someone like Visual Vengeance being, oh, we have a new film that was shot on Super 8 that no one has ever seen, or something like that.
Maybe you should do the 24-hour drama movie Mind Melter.
Yeah, and I would get tons of people to watch that.
Alan J. Pakula films.
One of the comments I always get when I do that marathon is people go like, it was a little slow for the first 30 minutes. I'm like, because you're at your computer and you can do whatever you want.
That's right.
Like, you're so easily distracted. When I pick movies for that, I just watched a really great movie yesterday, but by the end I was like, no, I won't be able to program this one because people will be like, oh, disappointing. It didn't end in an explosive way or something like that.
What was the movie?
Well, I won't say because maybe I'll be desperate and I'll be like, I am programming it.
Okay.
I'll play it at 2 a.m. in the morning when the real diehards are watching.
That's right.
But thank you very much for that letter. And if anybody knows what that movie is, and I feel like that's enough details that someone out there may know what this is. Because often you get like, oh, this is a still image from an animated thing on a TV that a friend took.
It's like an elf on a TV in the background, yeah.
Even though it's not a photo of your childhood, it's somebody else's.
No.
But eventually people figure it out. Maybe this movie this person described will be a movie that I'll be like, wow, I can't believe this exists. You got out there. Or maybe it'll be like a Paul Naschy werewolf movie.
Or maybe it'll just be The Howling. Who knows? The most famous one, yeah.
So thank you very much again for that letter. And our next letter goes, hey, Justin and Will. I started listening to the pod back in July and just caught up on all the main feed Patreon episodes. That is a heroic work. As you hear all the time, thanks for letting me discover Matt Farley and Charlie Roxburgh. I've also found a new appreciation for Jerry Lewis. And I've begun to dive into the world of Hong Kong action. We're doing the Lord's work that way. Getting people to watch that kind of stuff. As for an episode recommendation, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the films of, I will struggle through this now, Sergei Bardachuk, His 6-hour adaptation of War and Peace seems daunting from the outset, but after watching the first part on a December afternoon last year, I called in sick at work and watched the remaining 3 in a row. Ooh. Wow. His film Waterloo also includes an incredibly drunk Orson Welles. Ooh. Hopefully that's all the convincing you need. Thanks for everything, you guys. Looking forward to many more episodes in the future. Didn't you pick up War and Peace when it was released by the Criterion Collection and the new remaster recently, Will?
Well, I've heard a lot of good things about War and Peace.
Yes, I would like to check out that filmmaker. Doesn't have that many films in his filmography, even though some of them are very long. And everyone who watches War and Peace is like, it's amazing. I love it. And I mean, a drunk Orson Welles? Where else would we be able to see that?
Yeah.
Thanks for the suggestion. We don't do Russian filmmakers very often, so I will add this one to the list, and it'll probably be the next one that we do. So, this week on our Patreon, what are we talking about, Will?
We're doing our third and final dispatch from the Toronto International Film Festival.
All the films you need to hear about, nothing else.
Last week, you heard us talk about the Sylvester Stallone art exhibit, which was part of the festival, and which we both had a great time.
I wish I could have seen that Sly documentary. It's probably coming to Netflix or something
It
like
is
that.
coming to Netflix.
All right.
It's fine. You can watch it while you're cooking or whatever.
Oh, have you already seen it? Or
no, I'm just assuming.
You just know it'll be fun.
Yeah. Among other things, we discussed the appearance of Hong Kong superstar Andy Lau.
Specifically, us sitting in an audience, basking in his presence. What was that like? What have we learned about Andy Lau as, you know, the white guy sitting with a mostly Chinese audience? Well, you have to listen to the episode to find out. That's at patreon.com/The Important Cinema Club.
And by the way, speaking of plugs, I'll say it again. October 3rd at the Fox Theater in Toronto, in the beautiful Beaches neighborhood. Justin and I, our screening series, The Important Cinema Club Masterpiece Classics, we are presenting the incredible Canadian horror film Things.
It is the horror event of the season.
Some people have called it the worst Canadian film of all time.
They are incorrect.
They're wrong. It's a beautiful film.
Yeah, you will not forget the experience of watching this movie.
I mean, come on, guys.
And it's not, having watched it with an audience before, it is not like a torturous experience either. It's like lots of laughs. It's really fun.
But it's not The Room either.
No, it's not The Room.
It's a beautiful film in a way. You know?
We'll keep hyping it up until then, which is only a couple weeks away at this point.
October 3rd, yep.
So check it out. You can buy tickets now online. Buy them. Sell it out for us. We would very much appreciate that.
So next week, festival month concludes.
Woo!
We needed some real festival darlings. And
like the ones who, oh, you made a movie? Pfft, yeah, you're in.
Yeah, come to Cannes. We'll give you a prize. You get a prize. You'll get 2 Palme d'Ors at the very least. And maybe you'll get the jury prize. Maybe you'll get Best Director. Maybe you'll get Best Screenplay. For years, these men got a prize every time they entered. It's the Dardenne brothers, folks. We're going to be talking about L'Enfant. We're going to be talking about Rosetta. And we're going to be talking about...
You know what it is.
You know,
2 days.
2 days, 1 night, 5 years.
In the Valley, of course. The classic Quentin Tarantino ripoff.
Yeah. That's right. So, folks, it's the Dardennes.
You know what they are.
The gods.
Yeah. Now, you've seen all their movies, right, Will? Big fan?
I've seen most of them. I saw them as they were coming out. Yeah.
Oh, so you would like dutifully put your hat on, go to the cinema.
Eat my vegetables. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm ready to buckle up. You know, I'm going to zoom down that bicycle path with the Dardennes. That's what they're all about, right? Bicycle racing?
Yeah, and giant monsters.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
You like monsters, right?
I've seen maybe 2 or 4 of their films. So,
but what if the monster was the indignity of poverty?
Oh, geez. What's that? Ken Loach is here. It's an Avengers-like festival thing.
So, lots to look forward to.
Yep, we'll be doing that next week. So until then, my name's Justin Clue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. I'd just like to thank some of the new patrons, who include Yeso, Andrew Martinez, Tyler M. Bagby, Grace, Jack Braithwaite, William Jones, Logan Colhagen, Alex Owen, Kyle Gustafsson, and John Daniel. Thank you very much for becoming patrons. We could not keep doing this without you.
Well, as I said on our Patreon episode this week, we're talking about seeing Andy Lau live at the Toronto International Film Festival. But did you know that he came to TIFF with a movie?
What? He didn't just come on his own regard to accept the very real award they gave him?
Yeah, an award that definitely existed last year
Yes.
and will exist next year.
Not the first time they gave this award to someone.
The award for bestest acting in the field of acting.
I think it was like career... Yeah, something.
The excellence,
now,
excellence in career.
How do you do that with a straight face when you do that? Like, is it Andy Lau's people who say, like, if he comes down, you need to give him an award?
I think some negotiation has to happen like that. Like, there's a lot of politics that go into it. It's like, why would somebody come the second weekend of the festival?
Yeah.
Well, we'll give you Roy Thompson Hall and we'll give you an award.
And they're like, what's the award? Or they're like, oh, that sounds good. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because even Andy Lau, when he accepted the award, he was like, next time it'll be a real award. Basically what he said.
Well, I mean, he probably saw Tony Leung in Venice like 2 weeks before getting a real award.
Wait, what did Tony Leung win for?
Tony Leung got like an honorary lion or something. Like Ang Lee.
Yeah, that's not a real award. Honorary award.
No, hang on. Like when Venice gives an honorary award, it's real.
What are you talking about? People's Choice Awards?
Oh, you mean what TIFF gives?
Yes.
Like I say, when Venice gives an award, it's a real award. Ang Lee came, gave it to him. He was tearing. It was a beautiful moment. You know that Andy Lau looked at that and was like, "Those fuckers."
Yeah, it's an honorary award. I thought for a second Tony Leung had one for acting.
Well, he has one for acting.
Yes.
So,
but not recently.
No.
Andy Lau has one for acting at the Hong Kong Film Awards as well.
Yeah.
So he's got that.
Yeah, that's fine. But like what I'm saying is like when he's accepting like the fake award from the Toronto International Film Festival and then he looks at
well, all awards are fake.
Well, that's I'm sure what he tells himself.
He probably is like, oh, thanks, and then like tosses it off the balcony.
Along with all the other like, prizes and gifts that famous people get when they go anywhere.
Oh yeah, just big bags of stuff.
I remember I had a job once where I talked to a guy, a coworker who once like 15 years ago, it was their job to like chauffeur around Donald Trump for the day.
Oh, yeah.
Like back apprentice era. And the thing that he remembered more than anything is he was being showered with gifts everywhere he went and he just left them in the car.
Yeah, he doesn't need that, that junk.
Yeah.
There's a rich.
Like, he can buy whatever he wants. Yeah.
So the movie that we watch, though, The Movie Emperor, is interesting because it's about Andy Lau being Andy Lau.
That's right. So Andy Lau plays a very Andy Lau-like Chinese superstar. It begins at the Hong Kong Film Awards where he's up for Best Actor, beaten by Jackie Chan.
Who doesn't even show up for the awards, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
In an award given out by Wang Jing.
Yeah, and the real heads know.
Yeah, they know. Well, this is a movie that like I got maybe 10%, 5% of the jokes because other than the kind of, dry humor, it seems very directed to people who have known Andy Lau his entire career.
Sure, and a lot of colloquial references to the Hong Kong film industry. But I get the gist of it. It's like...
it starts very funny where he's doing an interview. He's sitting in the chair, or the interviewer hasn't shown up yet, and he gets up and he moves the Jackie Chan banner off to the side and takes the Andy Lau one and puts it right behind him. And then when the photographer shows up, he's like, oh man, Jackie Chan's all the way at the end. Pff, he's not going to win this award.
Yeah.
And so Andy Lau, after losing this award, decides, I want to win one.
And he wants to be a serious actor and make a serious movie. So he goes to the mainland and works with like a serious director. And there's some, there's
the
one
serious director played by the director of the film.
There's one joke in particular where he goes to the mainland and somebody says, like, there's a joke about, oh yeah, they abolished poverty here.
Yeah, he says, oh, can I see like real people? And they basically drive him around to all these like displays they set up for him to see. Like, oh, it's a guy who cuts faces into watermelons. And he goes, can I see like real people, like impoverished people? And then the guy goes, China has completely eliminated poverty. It doesn't exist anymore.
And like when we saw it, there was a laugh.
Yeah.
Like you can't not laugh at that. And I'm just like, how did they...
He's Andy Lau.
How did they get that through?
You know what? He turned around and went, what Herman Yao film am I starring in? That's a piece of propaganda. Yeah, let's go and do it. No problem.
So the movie from there, it's like a rather scattershot satire of, the festival circuit and pretentious film directors and
pretentious actors.
Yeah.
I wonder
and cancel culture.
Yes.
There's a little bit of that in the last act too.
Well, Andy Lau in this movie, it's interesting because it was written by his business partner. So it's like, I feel like these are some deep ass cuts when it comes to stuff that Andy Lau has done in real life.
Yeah.
Like there's a joke where he meets a butcher and the butcher like takes him out to drink and he gives him like, this is the knife that really made me who I am. And then they park off on the side of the road and Andy Lau just throws it away, which comes to bite him later in the butt. And like, as the movie goes on, it basically reveals like Andy Lau sucks as a person. Like he stinks, that he's doing this for the wrong reasons. One of the big, dramatic conceits of the film is that there's footage of him on a horse as it trips. And Andy Lau's like, but I was doing my own stunts.
Yeah.
Like, don't you understand how hard that is, me doing my own stunts?
And everybody on the internet is like, oh no, the poor horse. It's like, and there's the whole scene where he's like trying to apologize, but he can't apologize because he's like, but I did my own stunts.
Yeah. It's like, you don't know how hard this is.
Like Leo in The Revenant.
Yeah. And later on, he's even like, I don't even like animals. Don't make me hug an animal. I don't want to do it. It's great. Andy Lau just makes fun of himself, and then he can turn around and just make more movies, I will say. You know, he's in a movie with Tony Leung coming out in December.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's like both of them back together again.
I say I can't wait. I don't know if I'll see it. Like,
I mean, it'll definitely come
if it's
to
at
Young and
Dundas, we should go see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's something like weird about movies where like actors make fun of themselves in this way? Like, it's like, what? Come on.
Oh, like Weird How So?
Like, I'm trying to find like not apologizing for like, oh, I am like this, but like, is it self-serving?
Self-serving?
Yeah.
It's definitely self-serving.
Yes.
I will say though, like when you compare this movie to Jackie Chan's recent Ride On,
yeah,
which was Jackie Chan's own kind of like meta-textual like examination of his own stardom in late middle age.
Look, me and my daughter reconciling, even though they're my real life daughter, I've never actually spoken to her.
Yeah, like I think this one has that one beat, you know.
I mean, like you think of stuff that, you know, as me and you, normal, everyday people don't think about, like the fact that he goes to a very young woman's apartment to perhaps, you know, make love, and that like
perhaps maybe have a little of the, how shall we say, intercourse.
But like he is so highly aware of every camera in the room.
Yeah,
like even like takes a Band-Aid off and like puts it over the TV camera.
That's a really funny touch. That's like the mind of a celebrity touch. Gets that in there. Yeah,
and it does make him like look like a fool that doesn't want any kind of confrontation or anything like that, which, you know, maybe that's how he is. Maybe he's a monster. I don't know. Andy Lau seems to be a figure that even people who have like met him briefly don't really get a sense of him, just because he always has to be on when he's with crowds and stuff like that.
Oh, just like us.
I mean, we know someone, it's like a friend of a friend who worked as a special effects person in mainland China on big productions, and that guy doesn't care at all about any celebrities.
That's right.
Like, I've talked about him before. He's met Choi Hark, he's met Stephen Chow, he's gotten into fights with Choi Hark on set about makeup.
So who does he like and who does he not like?
He said that they were all nice. He said that, yeah, this guy Andy Lau we went to dinner with, he was very nice. Like he was sitting like right beside him.
Fuck, I'll go to dinner with Andy Lau. Invite me.
That's what Andy Lau probably wants. Not
you're
nerds
right.
like
you're
us.
Right.
He wants like some white guy who has no idea who he is.
Right.
So maybe if we can somehow become the ultimate actors and be that person when we finally sit down at dinner.
And then just as the check is being delivered, we drop. So what was it like making Future Cops?
Exactly.